Hi team, Neil at LifeWorks Gym here. I'm gonna wait for a couple people to get on. So if you do get on, give me a thumbs up or a happy face. Just let me know that you're here. I've been getting a lot of questions about how to, or give me some tips, Neil, on how to help my lower back. My lower back's really tight, and I do this all day. Can you help me? And it's really hard to just, in a couple sentences, give you some answers. First of all, it depends, because so many people have different bodies and so many people have lived different lives. So it depends. But I'm going to give you 3 things that if you do and you follow this in detail and you really are serious about curing your lower back, do these 3 things and it will work. Just follow the instructions. All right, you ready? You might need some paper and a pen. Tip number 1, you have to make an inventory of everything that you're doing with your body in a day. Some people do almost the same thing every day. Some people do a couple different things every day, but you got to make a diary of everything that you're doing. So for example, if you're standing a lot of your day, how long are you standing and how are you standing? Are you standing like this? So are your hips out to the side like this and you're talking to somebody? Or maybe you're holding a baby and your hips are held up to the side. Stuff like that is not good for your lower back, and try to stand centered. What are you doing? Are you sitting a lot of the day? And how are you sitting? Are your legs crossed a lot, or are you slouching? And are you doing it for 8 hours? Are you getting up every 30 minutes to walk around? When you're on the phone, maybe you can walk around. Walking, how are you walking? Are you shuffling along the ground, really short strides, or are you walking with really short strides because you're injured currently, or maybe it's just an expression of your emotion the way you're walking? But either way, you have to slowly break free of a slow stride and start to swing your arms. There's more details in every point I'm giving you, but make an inventory of this. And then if you have questions later, you can ask me on how to change these things. How are you walking up and down the stairs? Are you sprinting up the stairs, or are your knees hurt, and you're not planting your heel to get the bum to fire? Are you anchoring with the ball of your big toe when you're walking up the stairs? Because when you do that, it locks your ankle and that tracks your knee, which then up the line helps with your lower back. So, are you lifting all day? Or do you work in a kitchen and you have to lift heavy boxes of meat? And maybe you're slouching your lower back. Maybe you're lifting a box and you're twisting to put it on the shelf. Maybe you're shoveling all day, dirt or snow, and you're lifting and twisting through the lower back. That's got to change the way you do that. Are you extremely loose, and are you stretching all day and you're loose, which would make your lower back even more painful? We'll get into that in a second. Are you exercising a lot all day, whether it's in the gym or running, and maybe your technique with the style of exercising isn't absolutely perfect and you're degenerating your joints, including your lower back? Is there a lot of things you're doing that involves twisting? Maybe you're just going from doing stuff like this, or you're gardening and slouching with twisting. So just think about what you do a lot of, and then first of all do that. And then you can dig a little deeper in each one of those components. How can you do those better? If you don't know how to do those things better, that's when you ask. That's when you can ask me, Neil, how can I do this better? Maybe this is hurting my back. That's your first tip. Tip number 1 is make your daily inventory, because you know what? Even if you're seeing a personal trainer or doing an exercise class, maybe for 1 hour a day, or maybe you're doing 1 hour a day for 3 days a week, that's only 3 hours a week of maybe really good exercise. But what are you doing the rest of those hours in the day that are totally, like if there's a tug of war of lower back pain, the exercises that are doing really good for your lower back, but then everything you're doing the rest of your day is pulling that rope harder because you're doing more of it. So you have to stop doing those things, and then your exercises will be a little more useful. They'll do their job. You'll get somewhere finally, right? We got to start that positive motion machine in the right direction. So daily habits, that's step number 1. Step number 2, we have to figure out, are you more of a person with a lot of tight spokes? Like, just think of the human body like a tire, a mountain bike tire. Everyone's got spokes. And if you have a really warped tire, you'll have a bunch of loose spokes, and you might have a bunch of tight spokes. And then you got to look at the rim of the tire. Is it a really weak rim, or is it a strong rim? Or are the spokes really weak, or are the spokes really strong? So we're essentially looking at stability, mobility, and strength of the human body. So a loose spoke, you're either going to be a predominantly loose-spoked person, or you might be predominantly a tight-spoked person. I'll give you examples of that. Or you could be a combination of the two. So a really loose-spoked person is the type of person that is really mobile and really flexible. And it's really easy for them to do like pigeon and to do a whole bunch of moves in yoga, or maybe they're in the circus and they're squished into a box. But if you're really, really mobile, that means your joints may have some likelihood of shear loads, or they're not compressed enough. And so if you're really loose and you want to do a marathon, for example, and your joints are shifting on every ground reaction force when you're running, that may cause some degeneration in the lower back. So therefore, your lower back may get tight to protect that lower back. And so that tension is coming because you're loose. That tension isn't occurring because you're tight. So therefore, a predominantly loose-spoked person would stay away from too much stretching, because you can't stretch loose spokes and make them looser, because that's not efficient. That's not good for the lower back, especially if you want to be a dynamic human. Got it? Now, a really tight-spoked person, maybe they spent 3 decades at a desk and they're super, super tight. They can hardly stand up tall. Their hips don't open up very much. They don't exercise as much either, and they can't get into a deep squat without slouching or taking their heels off the ground. They can't get into a full range of motion lunge. Those types of people will need some more mobility. We'll have to warm up the tissue and get some mobility in there. So this is important to find out if you're more loose or more tight. So let's dig a little deeper if you're not sure. For example, in your hips, if you're a loose-spoked person, your knees might tend to go in quite a bit on every step, or on every if you're running, your knees might drive in really easily, which means you might have some laxity up through here, which means some tension up there could tighten up that knee. And a loose-spoked person in the hip might stand naturally with their feet inward a little bit, which means they have laxity up here. I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but most cases that's what it is. Person with tight hips may stand like this more like a duck foot, because their piriformis and the glutes are rotating the foot, and that'd be more tension up through here. So and then that's a really hard thing to figure out on your own. So if you're not sure about that one, you can easily ask me in the comments below. I also left my email in the description. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, it's a no-brainer to strengthen the 3 parts of your core. And the 3 parts of your core surround your lower back like a triangle. So that's your mid-back, that's your bum, and that's your abs. Every single person in the world needs a little bit of extra strength in their bum, their abs, and their mid-back. Whether that's adding tension in their butt because they're loose, whether that's adding mobility in their butt because it's too tight, or just pure strengthening exercises. And having said that, there's 100 different ways to approach exercises for the glutes, 100 different ways to approach exercises for the mid-back, and 100 different ways to do the abs as well. And there's a lot of wrong ways. There's a lot of mediocre ways, and there's a lot of mediocre ways that you can make even better with some coaching. But there's lots of amazing ways. And you know what? You can do a whole bunch of bum exercises, but you could do a whole bunch of exercises that include the mid-back with the bum and the abs, but that becomes a little more advanced. So you always start, if you're new to exercise, or you're just really injured, or it's really hard for you to move properly, it's always better to start with, just a hip exercise on its own without integrating the rest of the body. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's encapsulate everything. Tip number 1 was to make an inventory of all your movements and figure out how to make them better. If you don't have any answers, ask me. Number 2 is try to find out, are you have more loose spokes in your body, or you have a lot of tight spokes in your body? And stretch or don't stretch appropriately. The tip number 3 is strengthen your BAM no matter what. Every workout you do should have a bum, ab, mid-back exercise, or a combination of the 3 at all times. That might be a lot. I try to make it as a blueprint to follow for the rest of your life, because there's lots of details inside those things. I expect a lot of questions. I'm really happy to answer them. And, let that sink in and tell me what you think, because that's the secret sauce of Neil Fox's training methods. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Good to see you, Phil. I see you're there. And, ask me the questions. Talk to you later.